Good morning, everybody. You are with PV for Monday Morning Manna, and it is good to be with you. I am in my new house and I'm so happy. I have a new background and backdrop, and so hopefully that is aesthetically pleasing to you on this Monday morning. But it's going to be a good day. We are jumping into week 3 of the be attitudes. If we were going to be like anything, let's be like Jesus, right? And there are attitudes that he had that we all want to possess. So, anyway, thanks for jumping online this morning for Monday Morning Manna. And this is our daily bread, right? Like God gives us daily bread. So I know some of you aren't able to make it on Sunday mornings, and that is perfectly fine. We don't live stream our services just because, it's just hard to get like that sound and all those things right. So I jump on here Monday morning and I recap what we taught on Sunday morning with the Vital Community, which you guys are always welcome to join. You can come. It is in Chesterton, right by Round the Clock Restaurant. So that's 1587 South Calumet. We would love to have you. That is a 10 a.m. service, okay? So anyway, thanks for jumping on. As you guys do, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that share button, and tag a couple people because these first 2 weeks have been great. If you haven't caught a Monday Morning Manna, go ahead and they're on the news feed, so just scroll down a little bit. Make sure that you watch last week and then the week before. But anyways, guys, yesterday was amazing, and I hope you all had a great Father's Day. Some of you celebrate it with your dads, your spouses, whatever dad figures. But thank you to all the men who step up and just model what it looks like to be a good dad in the earth, right? You show up for your kids. You just are a good dad, provider, corrector, comforter, all of the things that we look for in a dad. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and jump into it. So we are talking about the Beatitudes. This is the most important sermon that Jesus ever preached. It was a Sermon on the Mount, and basically he was establishing what the kingdom looked like, because the whole deal here is that the kingdom of heaven would come to earth, and he was showing, okay, the kingdom is counterculture to the world's kingdom, right? This thing that we've established. The kingdom of heaven is completely counterculture. So he preached this message, the Sermon on the Mount, and basically blew everybody's mind, because how everyone thought that they would achieve happiness and a blessed life and all the things was in direct opposition to what Jesus said actually produces happiness and a blessed life and all of those things. So we need to go to the word when we're trying to figure out like what is going to create that soul peace, that soul contentment, that soul happiness. Good morning, Kelly. What is going to achieve that? Because happiness is more than a feeling, right? It's an inner like disposition. And so, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm not happy because they're feeling sad one day. That doesn't, no, this is like it's a bigger picture than that, okay? What is going to achieve like that inner disposition of like contentment and peace of mind, where you're not always like stressed out and in anxiety? Morning, Evelyn. What is going to create that inside of your own soul so that you can live every day in like this place with Jesus where you can be grateful for things and you can look around and realize how blessed you are, right? Even in the worst of circumstances, you can live a blessed life. You can live happy and that inner like joy, right? Which is so much deeper than just surface. So anyway, let's go to Matthew 5, 1 through 10. And it says, one day, and this is Jesus, he's delivering this message. As you guys are jumping on, just say good morning in the comments, and this is how we'll create community. Go ahead and talk back a little bit if you want. But it says, one day as he saw the crowds gathering, Jesus went on the mountainside and sat down. His disciples gathered round him, and he began to teach them. Okay? He says, God blesses those who are poor. We talked about this the first week, poor in spirit. Go scroll down to 2 mannas ago and watch that. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted. God blesses those who are humble. They will inherit the whole earth. God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice. They will be satisfied. Isn't that a pretty view? That's what I wake up to every morning. God blesses those who are merciful. Okay, everybody, you can type merciful. That's what we're talking about today. For they will be shown mercy. Okay, now there's nothing better that we could have talked about on Father's Day than mercy, because we serve a merciful God. He's a merciful Father, and He is our example of what that looks like. Okay, so I am a word girl. I love to dissect words and dig into them and what do they mean and what is that about. And the Greek word for mercy in the New Testament is this: to give help to the wretched. Okay, to give help to the wretched, to relieve the miserable. I love this definition because God is a merciful God. He gives help to the wretched and He relieves the miserable. He brings relief. Now, we love that song, right? As you guys are jumping on, good morning, Monday Morning Manna with PV. Go ahead and say good morning in the comments. Tag, like, share, whatever. Anyway, we love the song Amazing Grace because it says, you saved a wretch like me. Well, people, they used to sing it all different ways. Like, did they say wrench? No, they said wretch, okay? What does that mean? When you dig into that word, I think that's really powerful. It means to be very miserable. Wretched means to be very miserable, sunk into deep affliction or distress, either from want, okay, anxiety, or grief. This is so important that we understand that God saves a wretch like us, a wretch who was deeply miserable, deeply afflicted, in distress. God is a great rescuer of people. Now, we know that the Bible says we love God because He first loved us, okay? We love God because He first loved us. And this, guys, is where we get the ability to be merciful as well. We can show mercy because God has first shown mercy to us. We can pay that forward because we understand what it feels like to be rescued. We can help rescue others. So mercy comes from a heart that first feels spiritual bankruptcy. I don't know if you've ever felt spiritually bankrupt, or, when I was 19 years old and quitting college and spiraling out of control and just like, bleh, when I was in that space, I was spiritually bankrupt, okay? I didn't even know anything about God or Jesus or church, wasn't raised in church, but I knew I was empty in my soul, right? And so that first day, January 19, 1994, when I went and I heard the gospel and I was like, oh, this bears witness to my spirit. Like, my spirit was like, that is what I was so hungry for. And He saved me and rescued me and pulled me out, right? And set my feet on a solid rock, because it was like I was on a slippery slope. And maybe you're there. Maybe you're spiritually bankrupt. Maybe your life is spinning out of control. Maybe it's chaotic. Maybe you're just like, there's got to be more to life than this. Well, guess what? There is, right? And God is a great rescuer of people. So we can be merciful to other people because God was merciful to us. Now, some of you don't know this about me, but at one time, guys, I was actually a repossession agent. I took people's cars for fun. You're like, that is not funny. Well, guess why I can laugh about it? Because, guys, in our early 20s, my spouse and I, at the time, we were, he was super entrepreneurial and super risk taker. And so we would always kind of be like in these situations where we were trying to do things. And anyway, in that early stage of my 20s, we had 5 cars repossessed. Somebody say 5, okay? 5. And I had a baby, and anyway, it was like terrible. And so one day we had our last car repossessed. I'm like, I am literally over this life. And we went to church, and these people came up to us in the altar, and they were like, are you so-and-so? And we said, yes. They don't know us from Adam. We were in a different city. Hi, Pam. Good morning. We were in a different city. And he's like, well, the Lord showed me in a dream, like, not to sell your car, to take it to the, not to send it to auction, to keep it on the lot and pay for it and, like, give it back to you. Anyway, He showed us mercy, right? We were like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh my gosh. So we drove to the lot where there were thousands of cars, by the way. It's so interesting. I could teach a whole thing about this. But anyway, we went to the lot, and if you can't beat them, join them type of thing. So we're like, how do you do this? This looks really fun. And so we wound up working and doing that for a couple of years. But why am I telling you this story? Because it actually made us really good repossession agents, okay? We weren't like brutal and mean all the time and stealing cars in the middle of the night. Like sometimes, yes. But most of the time, it actually made us really compassionate for what people were going through. So I would walk up to a door. Sometimes I would hold people's babies, and the mom would be like crying or something. And I would be able to say, listen, okay, I've had 5 cars repossessed, and you're going to be okay. I promise you're going to get another car, and this is not the end of your life. And it kind of brought a lot of like calm to people, because I'm like, listen, get rid of this anyway. You're paying 22% interest. You don't want this stupid car. And so at the end of the day, it wound up bringing a lot of like peace and comfort. And I was able to be comforting in that moment, because I knew what that felt like. And I knew how hopeless and how distressed somebody is in that situation. So we are allowed to show mercy and compassion to people when we've experienced it first. We can show the love of God to people when we've experienced it first. And that's it, right? That's it. God says that he comforts us with a comfort so that we can comfort those who then go through difficult things that we've gone through. This is why we go through stuff, because the God of comfort comes and he comforts us. And then when other people come behind, we can say, been there, done that, you'll make it, you'll live, put your pants on, let's go. Like that's how it is. So the key to becoming a merciful person is to have been a broken person first. If anybody's been a broken person first, just throw some hearts up there, throw some hands. If anybody knows what it feels like to be, crushed, persecuted, rejected, abandoned, financially strapped, if any of you understand what that's like, just go ahead and throw some hearts, yeah, exactly, Pam, like you've been there, right? Me times 1,000, okay? So you get the power to show mercy from knowing in your heart that you owe someone more than you could ever pay, and yet they rescue you anyways, right? They showed up for you in a big way, and it's just so powerful. Anyway, it marks you, right? When you know there's a debt too big for me to pay, somebody shows up for you in a big way, yes, and then it helps you and it marks you forever, and it causes you to want to be able to do that for other people. It just does. So I want to point out something in Matthew 9, 10 through 13, and it says this: and as he sat at a table in the house, many tax collectors and sinners came and sat down with Jesus and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw this, they said, why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? Okay. Good morning, Christy. But when he heard it, good morning, Lisa. But when he heard it, he said, those who are well have no need of a doctor, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. Now, this is what I want you to understand. I want you to underline, highlight, do whatever you need to do here. Says, I desire mercy. Somebody say mercy in the comments. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. You know, we sometimes like to be a martyr. We sometimes like to sacrifice for the kingdom, right? Because it looks honorable. It looks great. So we're like, I've sacrificed so much, right? Like we could easily go there. We could say, I've given up this. I've done this. Like sometimes we live in that space, but God says here, I desire mercy. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. Okay? And so look at how Jesus clarifies that the opposite of mercy is sacrifice. It's the opposite. He's like, you're doing this, but this isn't what I'm wanting. Okay? I want you to be merciful. I'm not impressed by the sacrifice, because in comparison to what Jesus did, it's filthy rags. And you guys interpreted that as menstrual pads, okay? Like, we like to look at our sacrifice as like a badge of honor and be like, oh my gosh, I've given up my whole life to do A, B, C, D. And God is like, okay, that doesn't really impress me. You know what impresses me? mercy. Like, I desire that. I desire that you have a heart that is that, okay? And so sometimes we get it twisted. We want people to see. We want people to acknowledge what we've done and how much we've given, right? And God is like, how much have you loved people? How much have you like helped people up? How much have you? It's the heart, right, Pam? It's like the heart. And so I don't know. Sometimes we want people to see like how spiritually mature we are, or how hungry or passionate we are because we're giving so much or doing so much or whatever. We do that. We're human beings. We crave that attention sometimes, right? We're giving our times, our gifts, our talents, our money, our all the things, and we think it might impress people, but God is like, I desire mercy. Somebody say mercy. I desire mercy. That's the heart that I want you to have, okay? He's not impressed with that. He's impressed when we actually stop and practice following the model that Jesus set for us and rescuing people that are in distress, that are wretched, that are in a suffering season. That is what moves the heart of God. Okay. And behold, if you look in verse Luke 10, 25 through 37, and behold, a lawyer stood up and put him to the test, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? Here's somebody, he wants to inherit eternal life, and he said to him, well, what is written in the law? Okay, how do you read it? And he answered, you shall love the Lord your God, we know this, with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself. Okay? And he said to him, you have answered right. Do this, and you will live. And Jesus answers that person who's going to receive the mercy of God and inherit eternal life are those who have loved God with all their minds, hearts, souls, and strength, and who love their neighbor as themselves, okay? As themselves. As you guys are jumping on, go ahead and say good morning. Thank you for watching Manna. We're in the Beatitudes. We're talking about the attitude that we should possess as believers, following Christ's example. Okay, so he says, in other words, this is what he was saying. Blessed are the merciful, they shall receive mercy. Then the lawyer asks, and this is one of the best questions in the word, who is my neighbor? Okay? Who is my neighbor? We all like to define that because we all want to be merciful to people that we like. So we want God to say, well, it's the person that lives next to you. No, like he defines it for us. He breaks it down, right? And Jesus answers in verse 30 through 37. We know the story. Well, some of us do. If you don't, listen up. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. He fell among robbers. Okay, we know that Satan is here to kill, steal, and destroy people. Sometimes there's a spirit, that moves behind the hearts of people that are not submitted to God in some sort of way, right? And so sometimes it looks like a person that is robbing, stealing, whatever, taking from you, taking your joy, taking your peace, whatever. But this man fell among robbers who stripped him, okay, took off everything he was wearing, robbed him, beat him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Has anyone been left half dead before? Okay, if you do, put your hand up. If anybody's been left for dead before, and you can relate to this man who was stripped and beaten and robbed and left, like, in other words, you're a good for nothing. You have nothing to offer. You have I don't really care what happens to you. You can die. You can do whatever you want. Well, that's where he was. Now, then Jesus continues. Now, by chance, a priest was going down that road. And when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Okay? Now, you ever do this? It's like a lot of people now are like, just stay in your lane, just stay in your lane. He didn't even stay in his lane, guys. He walked on the whole other side of the street because he was trying to avoid dealing with somebody's trauma and drama. Like, he didn't even want to be anywhere near it. So he didn't even just stay in his lane. He walked on the whole other side of the street. And this is a priest. And he's like, I'm not even trying to get involved in that. Like, I'm on mission. I have a job to do. I have a whole bunch of people waiting for me to tell me how important I am. And I definitely am not going to stop and be distracted by that drama, right? So he was going down the road, and when he saw him, he passed by the other side. So likewise, a Levite, and when you study this out, this is a worship leader, okay? A Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. I think this is so crazy that God puts these things in here because he's trying to teach us something, okay? He's like, look at the preacher, look at the worship leader, okay? They're doing it wrong, okay? He says he came and saw him and passed on the other side. But a Samaritan, just a dude, okay? Just a normal, dude. Didn't have a title, wasn't concerned about it. Man, sometimes we can throw all of our titles in the trash because God isn't impressed with it, okay? He's like, here's just a regular dude, all right? And as he journeyed, he came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. Okay? Now, I want you to write this down. I always say that compassion is the catalyst for miracles. Every time you see a miracle in the Word of God, you will see it says Jesus was moved with what? Compassion. There's just something on the inside that overtook. And sometimes Jesus would be going somewhere. He'd be headed somewhere. He'd be on mission. But in the midst of it, he would see someone who was distressed or wretched or poor or needed him. And all of a sudden, guys, that became the more important issue, okay? He was like, well, I was going this way, but this now is for all you nurses out there, okay? For all you nurses out there, you know this. Somebody can come into the hospital and they might need attention and they might need help, okay? But then somebody comes in who has like a knife in the middle of their heart. Well, guess what? You are going to now ignore the people that you know are going to live, and you're going to pay attention to the person in trauma because you're like, okay, this needs more attention right now in the moment. Well, this was Jesus. Compassion is the catalyst for miracles. So, anyway, this Samaritan, when he saw him, he had compassion. And he went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. And then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him. And whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. Which of the 3? Now here's the parable. Which of the 3 do you think proved, okay? To neighbor, to the man who fell among the robbers. All right? Because a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people think about it. But this guy proved, okay? I'm sure the preacher was going to tell people, how amazing and compassionate he was. And I'm sure the worship leader was going to sing songs to the Father about how he was full of compassion. And there might have even been tears. But neither one of them proved that there was compassion. God said the one who showed mercy, the one who was compassionate, good morning, Judy, actually proved that he cared about the person. Okay, so this sounds like the beginning of a joke. If you say it like this. A priest and a worship leader were walking down the road, right? 2 wanted the attention, but only 1 paid attention, okay? I'm telling you, this is kind of how it was. God is like, those 2 are like on mission, have a purpose, trying to reach their potential, leaving the 1 to minister to the masses. This just reminds me of God says, it's great that you're going across the ocean to save 1 convert, but you're making them twice as son as hell as you are. You're going to reach the masses, but in the midst of you trying to go and reach the masses, you're ignoring the one that's right in front of your face. You're ignoring the people right in your circle. You can't see the forest through the trees, right? I'm going to go win these people to Jesus. He's like, okay, but you're hurting all these people in the process. You're ignoring their need. You're ignoring their trauma. You're ignoring their wretchedness or whatever. So, you think it's important to go on mission and whatever. I'm sure the preacher and the worship leader thought it was important to get to where they had to go because they had a whole crowd waiting for them that they were going to feed and sing to and all the things. And God is like, the one that proved merciful was the one that actually paid attention to the drama and trauma and didn't just start a job but finished it, right? He didn't quit when he was tired. He quit when he was done. He didn't just get him on the horse and drop him off at the inn and then say, well, you don't need me anymore. No, he said, I'm going to pay all the bills. I'm going to, when there's a cost, I'm going to continue to serve you until you get on your feet and until you actually can, function on your own. He didn't quit when he was tired. He quit when the job was done. God said that is who proved neighbor to the person, not the preacher, not the worship leader, just that guy who saw a process all the way through, right? So I want you to write this down. Mercy has 4 layers, okay? Number 1, mercy sees distress. This is so important. Mercy sees distress. If you look in verse 33, a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was and saw him. He saw him in distress. Well, guess what, guys? This is a deeper meaning than the first 2. They saw with their natural eyes. This Samaritan saw with his spiritual eyes. They saw him too, but they ignored it and walked on the other side of the street. He actually saw him. He saw him, okay? And this reminds me of the character of God, when he visited the woman that was sitting by the tree. We could get into that, but Sarah had anyway. So this is the character of God, El Roi. That is his nature. It's not something he does that he sees. It's who he is. It says God sees me, okay? El Roi. Well, this is the same situation. He actually saw. Jesus can see the wretchedness in us. He can see the need. He can see the distress. And he shows up and he follows the process all the way through, okay? Number 2, second layer. Mercy doesn't just notice pain. It has pity for the person in pain and responds to it. Okay, if you look, it says when he saw him, he had compassion on him. It moves you. It moves you to action. That's what compassion does. Layer number 3, mercy relieves another's pressure. It lifts it. It doesn't add to it. It lifts it. That's what a merciful person does. They don't add to pressure. They lift the pressure, okay? It practices being merciful in a practical way. So it says he went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring oil and wine, which were expensive, by the way. Then he set him on his own horse, right? And brought him to an inn and took care of him. Okay? And took care of him. Number 4, the 4th layer. Mercy doesn't discriminate. Okay? It doesn't discriminate. It acts kindly even to people you don't like. It's easy to say, oh, I'm going to run to these people that need me. They're so kind. They're so reciprocal. They're so receptive of what No, sometimes being merciful is actually helping somebody in a bad situation who you don't like. And that is we all need to learn and do better at that. I'm terrible at this sometimes. I'm who wants to help people you don't really like, who rub you the wrong way, who you have an attitude about, whoever, but mercy didn't discriminate. Guys, he was like an enemy. This Samaritan was like an enemy of that person that fell to the robbers. Didn't like him, wouldn't have helped him on a normal good day, but compassion took over. Mercy took over, okay? And if you look in verse 33, this basically was a half-breed Jew who stopped to help a Jew who hated him, okay? It's that guy yesterday was bullying this guy, but this guy was nope, I'm going to show up anyways, and I'm going to be there for you, even though you've treated me like crap my whole life, or whatever it is, okay? So mercy has an eye for distress. It has a heart of pity. There's an effort to help, and it's non-discriminatory. That is what mercy is. So Jesus said, go and show mercy. Good morning, Denise. Go and show mercy. Not like the priest, not like the worship leader, okay? Because they stand for the same thing that the word sacrifice stands for in Matthew 9:13. And what he's basically saying and comparing that to is empty religion, okay? The preacher and the worship leader were practicing empty religion. But the one guy who showed up for the other guy was that is who proved I am your neighbor. Okay, so Why did he choose a pastor and a worship leader? To make that comparison, to make that point, to teach us something. Basically as a wake-up call and a reminder that titles mean nothing to God. Positions mean nothing to God. Platforms mean nothing to God. Like, he's not impressed, guys. Not impressed. Okay? Talk is cheap. And it is a warning to all of us that there are way too many people who think they're doing the right thing. They think they're sacrificing. They think they're giving their all. They think they're showing up for God. But trying to get to one person, they hurt a bunch of people in the process. And they're doing the opposite because they have no eye to actually see with a spiritual eye the bigger picture and what is actually happening. They don't see the stress. They're not responding with compassion. And instead, right, this is the human mindset. This is what we do sometimes. We make all these judgments in our head. The preacher and the worship leader, right? The preacher and the worship leader. This might have been what they were thinking in their head. Well, that guy must have hung around the wrong crowd. Okay? That guy must have hung around the wrong crowd. I'm not helping him because he probably shouldn't have gotten himself into that situation in the first place. Yes, that's hard for all of us, especially when people are not kind and treat you badly. Like, this is hard. It's human nature. We want to help people who help. We want to help people who are nice. We want to help people who are kind. We do not want to just run out and help our enemies and run out and help people that we just feel like don't like us or have an attitude against us or whatever. But in our mind, our human nature, we make all these judgments, okay? That guy must have, he must not have been doing something right for him to get robbed, or he was in the wrong part of town and those aren't my people. Whatever it is, we sometimes, instead of looking at the need, we try to figure out what created it in the first place. Was it self-sabotage? Did they do this? Or and then we discern if we're gonna get involved or not based on if we think someone deserves it or not. It's crazy. Okay, now, we think that guy must have done something to deserve that. Job's friends were like that. They weren't even really friends. They're like, well, I don't know. He must have ticked off God. Guess what, guys? He didn't. It was a test. And so, man, we get it wrong sometimes. Or we think, I have worked too hard to maintain my peace and to get my mental health in order, to get involved with somebody else's drama and trauma. This is the psychobabble of 2024. You can see it in every news feed, every meme, I'm gonna protect my inner peace, so I'm not even trying to get involved in your mess, okay? That is what we are taught, but that is not what the Bible teaches. It says, God, interrupt me. I don't care if my mental health is in danger. Jesus sweat blood and tears. You think dying on a cross was good for his mental health? Come on, somebody. But we are all about self-love, self-focus, self-absorption, I am on the right path now. I'm finally in a good place with God. I don't even want to get into that. I don't even want to be around all that messy. Y'all can have all your toxic. I'm just going to do me. I'm going to stay right here because I'm finally in a place where I'm intimate with God. Yeah, I'm sure the preacher and worship leader thought that too, but God's like, that don't impress me much. Get there and get muddy with the people that are in a suffering season and that are in trauma and drama and finish the job you started, right? Finish what needs to be done. I'm sure the preacher and the worship leader started with the right heart, but they ended with the wrong one because they focused on the crowd and the people that were wanting them and needing them and wanted to have the thing. And here's a guy dying on the floor trying to and worse than that, guys, that guy that was stolen and robbed and whatever, he used to be part of that crew, that preacher and worship leader crew. He used to be part of them. He was one of them. And, but then when he started having issues, they're like, you're distracting me. You're getting me off mission. You're now you're somebody else gonna have to take care of you because I got stuff to do. And God's like, well, your stuff is definitely not more than that stuff. So I'm gonna send just a normal guy to continue to pay attention to this stuff because the stuff you think that you're going to do doesn't impress me much. This right here needs more attention right now. And so Anyway, we do all these things. We create all these scenarios in our head. We think we're doing right when we're actually, God is like, no, you were on the right track. You were meeting your purpose. You were doing the things. Somehow we get steered off, like thinking that it's about something else, and it's not, okay? So anyway, we don't want to be inconvenienced by somebody else's trauma, drama. We try to figure out why they're in it. Why, I just don't know. Why are they like that? Why are they in this situation? God didn't say that we had to figure that all out. He just said, when you see it, help and follow it through. Not until you're tired, but until the job is done. So where I'm going, this is what we think sometimes, is more important than who I could be helping. I'm on mission. I have a purpose. I'm going to reach my potential. I am the queen of teaching reaching potential, okay? I taught the Kazone class for 10 years, and over 100 people have gone through it. Hundreds of people have gone through it, right? Good morning, Janet. So I get that, but I also see the danger of it because people can't see the forest through the trees. So in the name of like reaching potential, they're passing by 100 things that need the attention, right? Because they now call that a distraction, an interruption. Now you're just taking me away from what I should be doing. No, God is like, that is what you should be doing. That is what you should be doing. Putting them on your horse, taking care of them until it's done, until they're on their feet, until they can function again. And this is what we have to reset. We got to reset. Reaching my potential, right? Sometimes this is what we think. Reaching my potential is my priority. Getting to my purpose is my priority. God says, actually, no. It's not about you. They are your priority, right? This person is your priority. This mission is your priority. Like this situation is your priority. Like your priorities now take a backseat. Your purpose that you think that I have for you takes a backseat because this is what I have for you, right? Like this still needs attention. So we sometimes think that a person's pain is a distraction and it's pulling us away from our true purpose, when God is like, no, that's actually the true purpose. And you're going to wind up experiencing pain because you're actually leaving the true purpose and following empty religion, right? So performing for the approval of people and appearing important has become more of a priority than ministering to hurting people, doing what is actually important. Sometimes, guys, as a preacher, as somebody in ministry for 25 years, we can get this so twisted so quickly. We have to reset every day, especially people working in ministry full time, right? And so anyway, performing for the approval of people and appearing important, pastors can do this, worship leaders can do this, performing for the approval of people. Like I'm sure there was a whole room full of people waiting for what they had to offer, right? But no, when that becomes more of a priority than ministering to a hurting person and doing what is actually important in the moment, then God is like, okay, I just want you to refocus and recalibrate. Preaching to the choir here, guys. I'm a preacher. Been around ministry my whole life. So I have to reevaluate and be like, okay, what is important now? Like, what is important now? Okay. And God says mercy is the weightier matter of life. Mercy, not sacrifice. Mercy is the weightier matter of life. It is always in danger of being neglected because of our preoccupation of what other people's perception of us is, and if they approve of what we're spending our time on, what we're spending our money on, why we're taking so much time helping this cause or helping this person, or you know how many people probably came to that Samaritan and were like, that is not your responsibility. That is not your duty. Like, I'm sure they have other people. Like, that is not your issue. That is not like what? Okay, you already gave him a hotel room. Or a hospital room. Somebody else can come along and do the other hospital rooms. I'm sure he had people all the time in his ear, like, why you don't even like that guy? That guy doesn't even like you. But he had to just be like, oh my gosh, I saw this. I can't unsee it. Now I have to follow it through, right? So when you are there and he's helping somebody that was blindsided by life and standing next to him, He didn't just go halfway, he went all the way. Jesus didn't come and just go halfway, he went all the way, right? Even though we didn't like him, we were enemies, we were against, he died on a cross not even knowing if we would accept him in the end. That's what happened. He died on a cross not knowing if we would choose him. That is so merciful, okay? But sometimes, like the preacher and the worship leader, we want to be in rooms with winners and leaders and movers and shakers, and but Jesus ran to losers and victims and oppressed people and hurting people, and that is what he modeled, right? He's like, yes, it's great to spend time like I love the creative process. I love vision boarding. I love getting in a room of people and being inspired and all the things, right? But I could get consumed by that and forget, like, oh my gosh, there's needs like all right in front of me. And so Jesus was running to the oppressed and the afflicted and the wretched and the victimized, and he was doing all of that, right? So sometimes we just want to avoid that. We want to walk on the other side of the street because it takes too much of an emotional toll on us. It definitely does. Helping somebody in drama and trauma messes with our emotions. It messes with our mental health. It messes with our peace. But sometimes God asks us to do that and prove a neighbor to somebody else, okay? So a merciful person is perceptive of a person's distress and feels pity for their pain. Mercy in a nutshell, guys, is putting your money where your mouth is. And it's more than a feeling, right? It's more than what we need in the moment. It's what they need in the moment. Mercy is not just empathy, it's action. That's what it is, right? So, anyways, he didn't just know he should pick him up and take him to an inn, he did it. Jesus says today, go and do likewise. Don't just do Bible studies about it. Don't just think about it. Don't just intercede about it, right? Don't puff yourself up and think you know what a good Christian does. Don't just listen to podcasts about it and have nice thoughts. Don't just be inspired by others' acts of mercy, but actually be merciful yourself. Don't just talk about it. Don't just think about it. Actually do it, right? So this is so important. And I think it's really important to understand, like, I always like to read the Bible in opposites. So something that it says, I like to read it in the opposite so that it can help me to understand. And sometimes to understand what something is, like we talked about being poor in spirit. We talked about last week something else. And in order to understand, it's like sometimes it's hard to define, but it's easy to recognize. And sometimes to understand what something is, you have to look at what it's not. So here's what mercy doesn't look like, okay? It doesn't look like people sitting around talking about why a person is going through what they were going through. Okay, Job's friends were not merciful. They were conspiring, talking about he must be in this situation because God's mad at him. He must be without everything because, he's done something wrong. He must be without. It does not look like that. That is not what mercy looks like. And judging him for being in the oppressed state that he was in, okay? It doesn't look like people saying, heal, okay? Don't bleed on people that didn't cut you. That is so harsh. It is so unempathetic. And it's the one thing that I learned like crazy over these past few years that sounds so just uncompassionate from believers, right? That is not what mercy looks like. It doesn't look like people determining when and how you should just get over something already. That is not what mercy looks like. It sometimes, like Lisa Turquoise just did this at Elevation yesterday, sometimes it just looks like saying, I am so sorry you went through what you went through. I'm not even going to try to understand it. I'm not even going to try to dissect it. I'm not even going to try to figure it out. I don't even care why you got to where you got to. I'm just here to help. I'm just here to be a part. I'm just here to support. And it doesn't look like being critical of someone because they aren't as holy, ethical, or put together as you. That is not what mercy looks like. Mercy looks like, hey, I'm going to love you despite what you've done, where you've been, who you are, who I think you are. I am going to show up and walk this thing out. Psalm 145, 8 and 9 says this. The Lord is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. The Lord is good to all, and his mercy is over all that is made. God's mercy is over all that is made. One of the best, greatest scriptures I just love is that God's mercies are new every morning. His mercy, he shows up to help. He shows up to rescue every single morning, okay? So powerful. And I think one of the things that we just have to pay attention and recognize, and it's one of the greatest life lessons. Again, like I said, I've been teaching the Word of God for 25 years. One of the greatest life lessons is looking at that man that fell to the robbers and really understanding the truth is that he experienced more empathy from a non-believer than people that were working and serving in ministry, right? And what happens sometimes, guys, is the church is missing it in 2024, and we do display this haughtiness. We do display this attitude. If I had $1 for every time somebody said, non-believers treated me with more empathy than believers did, or non-believers gave me more of a listening ear than believers did. Now, that is not a knock to the church, you guys. I love the church. Jesus died for the church. I love the church, right? But the church overall displays a haughty attitude when it comes to the hurting among them, even on the inside, okay? It doesn't do this right. That guy who fell to the robbers was partnering with the preacher and the worship leader probably a week before that. He was part of their crew. He wasn't part of the Samaritan crew. He was part of their crew. He was doing the deal. He was building life with them. And so what happens is we have to understand that probably worse than the physical pain of that man lying there, beaten and robbed, was him looking over at the people he was building with, right, and seeing them think that they were running to a more important issue. And he's like, dude, I'm your friend here. Like, I've been with you for however many years, days, decades, whatever. Sometimes that is more painful than the actual physical pain. I'm sure he sat there and was like, oh my gosh, like, I helped you, whatever. I prayed for your family 5 years ago. I got you through a crisis, and you're just letting me, like, sitting here and letting me, like, die on the ground, right? Because you think you have, like, more important issues to get to, or whatever it is. And this is so important because the church is missing it here. We miss the forest through the trees, and we don't sometimes have mercy and compassion for those who are in trauma and drama in a suffering season within the church because we're too busy judging why they're there. I'm telling you, it's something. So mercy is the compassion of God. When he looks upon us, it motivates him to lift that guilt, that pain, that burden from us, even if that means hurting in his own self, right? Jesus hurt when he died on the cross. Jesus hurt when he interceded from the people. Jesus hurt when he was carrying the cross up the field. I'm sure he didn't want to do any of that, but he is a good rescuer of people. So there's a mercy rule. I talked about this and ended on this yesterday. There is a mercy rule in baseball, okay? When you're just getting creamed and it's humiliating and embarrassing and you're like, oh my gosh, where's the mercy? When's it going to be over, right? When is this suffering going to be over? Because they are just creaming us, okay? Now, I think this is so important because basically what happens is the winners choose to stop winning so they don't add to the suffering of the other team. It's like they could keep winning, they could keep creaming you, they could just keep smashing the ball and being like, we are the champions. They could do all that. But to stop the suffering of the other team and to eliminate the humiliation and to eliminate all the pain that they're going through just watching themselves be creamed, right? They choose to stop winning. And I think that is just such a humble, awesome place to be, right? Just sometimes they're like, you know what? Like, let's just be done. I mean, it was great. We won. Let's high five them, but we don't need to like rub it in their face. That is the mercy rule, guys. That is the mercy rule. Anyways, on that note, the Beatitudes, the attitudes that Christ is like, this is what the kingdom is built on. This is what the kingdom means. This is what the kingdom is about. It's not the whole worldly stuff. It's not all the things and doing all the things and chasing all the things and being all the things that we think the world is telling us in order to have happiness and obtain this whatever, all the things that the world tells us we need to do. God is like, man, sometimes it's just about helping one. Sometimes it's just about helping one. Maybe even whatever, just until it's done, right? Not until we're tired, until the job is done. But on that note, guys, I just want to invite you, 10 a.m. Sunday mornings, 1587 South Calumet in Chesterton. Would love to have you. We're going to talk about the fourth Beatitude next week and plow into that. And it's going to be a hot one. So listen, guys, the best thing you can do when you're outside and you see people working in construction or doing something, just keep a cooler of like waters in your car, or make sure that you're checking on like your elderly neighbors and people, you know, whatever. Take a little bowl and have water in it, so if you see like dogs outside or animals outside, anything, it's going to be a hot one. Just make sure that you're showing compassion and mercy. And I love you. And on that note, be merciful today. Have a good rest of your week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.